Okay, so I've been sitting on this topic for a little minute, mostly because I didn't want to come across as somebody that's like, I liked it before it was cool. I liked it before it was popular, all that stuff. That's not what this is, I promise. But I do want to talk about something that's been bothering me a little bit, which is that indie music doesn't really feel indie anymore. And I think we need to talk about why. So let's go back to 2020. The world shuts down. Of course, we have COVID and all of that. Everybody's locked in their rooms with nothing but time. They got their laptop, they got GarageBand or whatever they're going to use. And something kind of beautiful happened from that time period. This whole wave of bedroom pop just exploded. Artists making music just in their bedrooms, recording on whatever they had on their phones, their laptops, whatever, putting it out on SoundCloud, Bandcamp, and still on Spotify and stuff. And, somehow this whole thing at the time, I felt really intimate. It was something new, and it felt like a secret for a little bit of time. You'd find a song and feel like you'd discover something that nobody else had found yet. And that era genuinely did give us some very good stuff. Artists who are just kids or just figuring out production on their own or what makes their music unique, and making music that sounded like it was recorded in a shoebox because it probably was. But it was perfect because of that, because of all the imperfections and all that, because of the lo-fi quality being the whole vibe of everything, right? But think about all the artists from 2020 around that time, the people that just blew up, right? There's tons of people that just came out of nowhere. But Clairo said something about this. She talked about how the bedroom pop label felt limiting because she wanted to progress as an artist. She wanted to make music that was meant to be heard. And I mean, yeah, I get that completely because artists do grow. I want to make music that everybody wants to hear, right? That's what you want to do. That's what I want to do. And this is not to say that artists shouldn't grow because they're supposed to, right? But when that happens at scale, when the whole genre grows up at one time, you start to lose the thing that made it feel special in the first place. Indie music went from underground to accounting for about a quarter of Spotify streams. This was in 2024 though, so who knows what it's up to now, which this is actually about double what it was in 2017. So that's pretty crazy. That's no longer a niche thing. That's just music. That's mainstream at this point. And again, I want to reiterate, I want to be clear that I'm not mad about it, right? I still love a lot of these artists. I still play the music. This isn't a call out. This is more like a feeling. That specific feeling when you go to a restaurant, it's a little chill spot, and then it gets too popular, and suddenly it's just not the same anymore. Nothing's wrong with it, it's just different. It's the same food, but it's just too busy. And I also think indie is just such a broad spectrum. I mean, between bedroom indie pop, indie rock, indie steez, I don't know. There's so many genres. And if it doesn't necessarily fit into alternative or alternative rock or any of the bigger genres, you're just going to slap, hey, this is indie. But also, indie is technically, I guess, a movement of people that aren't in a label or people that are kind of making music on their own, or that's kind of what I imagine indie is. And I also want to call out something else that I've been thinking about in this genre or in this spectrum is I love indie rock. That's one of the top genres that I listen to. And there are just so many good bands that I've found over the past couple of years. And I think it kind of bothers me because I don't know if it's just the time, time has changed, or the artists have grown and they want to appeal to more people. But this is kind of the take, right? So some of these bands, like Flip Turn, they were a smaller band, had a couple albums, and then the first album that I think that they dropped that was with a really big crowd was their last one, Burnout Days. And I still think it's really good, but I know some people think that it's not as good and it kind of veers away from their initial sound that got them popular. And similar with, take for instance, The Moss, right? They just released a new album. And I really like a lot of their older stuff, but this new album doesn't necessarily sound like what we're akin to, which is not inherently a bad thing either, because obviously you want people to have diversity and do things, change it up and do things that are different. And I don't know if it's just because I have more attachment to the older music, but I feel like some of these new albums, they either don't feel original or creative, or they don't feel like what the band should be doing, in the sense of this is what got them popular, and they're kind of veering away from that. I think creative freedom is a huge accomplishment. I think it's great that lots of these bands and people get creative freedom, that they can do whatever they want. But man, there are some bands that they had a really strong start, and now I'm like, man, this album was not exactly what I was thinking it was going to be, or what I was hoping for, or much like their past music. And it's like, oh, that kind of sucks. And I think I have been trying to find new artists, new albums, and things like that. And it feels almost like I'm either bored of music, can't get into it, or everything just sounds the same right now. I don't know. It's a weird space right now that I'm in, because I do genuinely find some really good artists that are super small and still coming up and releasing new music and stuff. But I don't know, sometimes getting into albums is just really difficult for me, especially ones that people suggest. I'll listen to it, I'll be like, I'm glad you like that, but that was not for me. And that's been me with a lot of albums from this year. And I've listened to a bunch of different albums, and I don't know, maybe my ears are deteriorating because I'm listening to it too loud or something. I don't know. Anyways, that was just a side tangent, right? So let's get back to some good news, I guess. Although, yes, it's a genre, I also think of indie as a movement by independent people, and just having creative freedom, making whatever you want. And the good thing about this genre is that it typically resets every couple of years, because it's not necessarily just a sound, it's like a revolving door in a sense. Every couple of years, what's defined as indie changes. And this has been apparent just over years and years. For the past 20 years, indie, or what was seen as indie, just keeps changing. And now we have so many subgenres and niches and things that indie is now one of the biggest genres too. So anyways, indie, it changes. It's people just making things for fun, outside of a giant cogwheel that is, I guess, labels and AI music. But I wanted to kind of give a positive reinforcement to this video, so I did go out and find a couple artists I was mentioning that I do enjoy, that have some things that I enjoy, and kind of feel a little bit more like going back to that 2020 time of indie music and things that just feel a little different, right? Hold on, let me pull up my Spotify, because really I could just name a bunch of people. There are a bunch of people on here that I like. And I do have underground-ish playlist where I have some people that are a little bit smaller, but I'm just gonna name a couple of songs and the artists, because yes, technically you want to listen to albums by the artist, but some of them I don't even think have albums. So I don't know, here's a couple. Virginia is for Lovers by Charity Kiss. That's a really good song. Cottonwood by Wilbur Wilbere, Wilbere, okay. Elevator Fight Club, they have a bunch of really good songs. I really like them. Johnny's Day Out is really good. I saw them live with the Backseat Lovers, and that was really cool, and they're really good. Hefner is pretty good. Breakfast Biscuit, their album, I forget the name of it, Unobserved maybe? I know that's a song on there, but Breakfast Biscuit, their oldest album, I don't know if they have one or two albums, I don't know, but that album is really good. And then there's also Small Pockets, they have some good songs. So I'm sure if I look in here I can find more. I don't know. It's also hard to define what, is there a monthly listener limit to what's niche and what's whatever, so I don't know. But there's just a couple artists that I've found, and of course my music, Closing Shift, go check it out. I got a new album coming out in a couple months for summer. But still, there is really good indie music, but again, it doesn't feel like what it did. And that's inherent with any music genre. It kind of changes over time. That's all I got. Thank you guys for watching, and bye bye.